ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, baby, higher.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time for Fight Night Fortunes with the one and only Mr. Lou Finocchiaro at GamLou. Go follow him on the Twitter. As we're down under UFC 312 this weekend, two headline fights. Lou's going to break those two down and a couple others. And of course, it's Super Bowl weekend. So I got to ask him his thoughts on the Super Bowl, of course. Maybe a go-to appetizer and meal that he might have throughout this Super Bowl. But we'll get to that, of course, throughout the show. Shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download that app. It is free. AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Terry Smith, second to none. Go follow him on Facebook. Place an order today. Use the promo code SHRIMP and get a 2-pound bag of the 1620s, the big boys, on Terry Smith and AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Last but never least, Viva Tequila Seltzer, CT Bets Austin. The team second to none. The product even better. Go try a lemon, or as we like to say, the East Coast is cuckoo for coconut. So without further ado, let's bring him in, Mr. Lou Finocchiaro. Afternoon, Lou.
Jeff, how we doing? Another beautiful fight card this time. The UFC continues its travels. We're in Sydney, and we're in week 2 of 11 in a row. So I'm ready. I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. And it's also Super Bowl week. And next week, the UFC will see even more popcorning of the lines, if you will, because there's going to be no football to bet next week. And UFC always this time of year will gain some momentum as far as eyeballs. And then once March Madness is over, it really gains more. So it's a good time of the year to be a fight fan, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
Well, as I said in the intro, it is Super Bowl week. Kansas City Chiefs right now. The money's slowly filtering back in on Philly. I've seen some shops drop it down to like a half point. It's basically almost a pick 'em right now. Little money coming in on the under around 48.5. Any thoughts before kickoff? What you see happening in the Super Bowl?
I love the Super Bowl. I compare it honestly because my season really is over after the championship games. The Super Bowl is fun and recreational. I've been betting tails for 45 years, so I'll continue to do that. I happen to think that in the game that there's a team that plays defense and runs the football and is built and is proven to be of championship caliber. And then there's another team that is really as crafty and beguiling as can be, have managed to win a lot of close games this year. But really, when you look at Kansas City, it's like, okay, there's Andy Reid and Mahomes. And surely head coach and quarterback advantage lies with Kansas City, but that's it. Every other aspect to the game that I'm trained to look at says Philadelphia to me. So the good news is it's not my bets are fractions of what they would normally be. It's not really that serious, but I'm taking Philly. I have taken Philly money line. I'm taking Philly minus 4.5 plus 198. That's a DraftKings, and that's now plus 189. That's gone down since I bet them. I'm also taking Philly minus 6.5. That's a plus 263. I'll take Barkley for MVP at plus 260, and I'm taking Hurts at MVP for 350, because if Philly wins it, one of those two guys is winning it. And if one of those two guys wins it, I'm winning money. Finally, I do have a Chief bet, and that's the long field goal will belong to Kansas City. That was a minus 130. All of these DraftKings. So clearly you can see that I favor Philly. I think the game looks like 29-19, and the 19 from Kansas City comes in the last minute. I think Philly is just going to run the ball right down their throat, control the clock, and control the game.
I've had a lot of people on this week. We had the Philly Godfather on this afternoon, where I met him last year on Radio Row in Las Vegas when I was there. Was hoping to be in New Orleans this year, but hey, I'm back home in cold Cape Cod, unlike Arizona. A lot of people do like Philly. I agree with you with when you break this down, X's and O's, and what Philly can do. And we brought up a couple Super Bowls ago when Kansas City lost to Tampa. And yes, Kansas City's offensive line was banged up. Yes, Patrick Mahomes had a bum ankle as well, but you could tell right away in that first quarter, Lou, the pressure that the Philly D was putting on Mahomes this game was going to be a wrap early. And I think this Philly defense can do the same to Kansas City and their offensive line this year.
Philly has the horses. I mean, their defensive front seven has been top ranked since week 4 or 5. And their cornerbacks are no slouches. They're young, and they've grown into their veteran standing, even though there's a rookie back there. Nothing against Kansas City. They're a great team. But sport is cruel. I've been saying it 2 weeks. And how ironic for Philly, Andy Reid's former team, to be the one that keeps him from the greatness that he and the Chiefs, I believe, deserve, but may not actually get. So sport is cruel. I'll also say this. When people ask me who I like in the Super Bowl, I say, who does your mom like? Because in the last 20 years, she's been as right on the Super Bowl as me. That's why I don't put a lot of stock in this. Okay, so I'm a Philly fan because that's what I think. If Mahomes comes down and he's within 6 points late in the game, then Philly's in a heap a lot of trouble, I suppose, right? I mean, how you keeping Mahomes out if that's the scenario?
Last question, then we'll get to the Octagon Down Under UFC 312. Listen, we've seen a lot of Super Bowls in our days. I know back in the day, I used to have 25, 30 people here. I had food for weeks here. But that doesn't happen anymore. Everyone else has other places to go, yada, yada, yada. Is there a go-to appetizer or something? It's Super Bowl Sunday that, Lou, it's just tradition that you always go to.
It is, but it isn't a food item. It's the Sunday round, the final round of the golf tournament here, Waste Management, that on Sunday at 7 a.m. in the morning you go and you're one of the few people there, these maniacs and these college kids who won't be there like they have been in past years. However, they're all drunked up. They've had 5-6 days of the tournament and they're home in bed at Sunday morning. Only real golf fans go Sunday morning to watch the round. So I go out there, I spread out on 16, have a couple of Bloody Marys, relax, and then, by noon or so, when the tourney's getting warmed up, I slip out of there and go home, get ready, and watch a Super Bowl. That, to me, I don't know how it gets any better on a Super Bowl Sunday than that.
I am jealous as you know what. Wow. I'll sign me up for that every Sunday, will you?
And hey, believe me, the Bloody Mary thing is a pleasure.
UFC 312 in Australia. Four fights. We're going to break down the two headliners. Duplessis and Strickland rematch there, and then Zhang versus Suarez. I was listening to your podcast, obviously, like I do every Monday, the Sneak
Thank you.
Peek podcast, and we'll get into the Suarez Zhang fight. But I love what you said there, and I am 1,000,000% behind you there. So I'll wait till we get to that. The first fight you wanted to break down, Jenkins versus Santos.
Well, the first thing I want to say, Jeff, normally when we talk about these fights, we last week we wanted to know where we were. Well, we were, in Saudi Arabia, and then we needed to know who are the Muslim fighters, because that's who the crowd's going to be behind. And can that affect the judging and all that? And I always mention, and it's usually the case, that the region or the area that hosts the UFC event is populated with not only their athletes, but many of those athletes find themselves in favorable matchups. In this case, that's not really the case, because many of the Australians are underdogs in their fights, and the one or two that have a favorite position is in against a stick of TNT. And so that is what's unusual. And so I think maybe there might be some live Aussie dogs on this card. And so, boom, we go right to the main featured fight of the prelims, which is Jack Jenkins and Gabriel Santos, the one we're going to break down here. Santos is a live wire Brazilian. He's going to have a few inches of height. He's going to be the bigger man, faster man, younger man, way more violent man, whereas Jenkins is more of a grappler, wrestler, pressure, durable kind of an Aussie. But he's been in with a slightly better level of competition, in my opinion. He doesn't have to travel across the globe like Santos does, and he's fighting in front of his home crowd. And so Jenkins has skills, and if this is a close, tight fight, for one time, rather than bucking home cooking, I might want to be on the side of home cooking. And I think that's what I got with Jenkins, who's a plus 200 or plus 190 or something. And so I like Jack Jenkins in this fight, fighting at home as an Aussie in front of his compatriots.
Yeah, as you said, 12 fights in all, 8 Australians. And I have learned from you, from doing the shows, that, as you said, each country that we travel to, Germany, Saudi Arabia, we head over to England, and you get a bunch of those fighters. You see the money come flying in on these home fighters here. Did you see it on this card here, or not as much as usual?
Well, I haven't seen it yet, but that's not uncommon, because we're taping here on Thursday, and most of those bettors aren't going to get around to playing their bets and their parlays till Saturday. But on Saturday, it'll be interesting to see what we see. I'll be interested in that. But I was surprised at a couple of the Aussies. And, the Jenkins fight, yeah, maybe he's an underdog, but, he's a plus 125, 135. Close to a 2-to-1 underdog is not giving that man his due respect. And so that's one that I like.
Next fight on the card, Matthews versus Prado. Matthews minus 245, Prado plus 200. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 180, Lou.
So now we're in the main card, and now we're talking about another Aussie, which is Matthews, against this Argentine Prado. Matthews is 30. When he was 22, he was the rage. He was the future of not only mixed martial arts, but he was Aussie, so Australian mixed martial arts. Hasn't really ever lived up to that hype. The guy is strong. He's durable, meaning he can take a beating and keep coming at you. He's been in with the best of his division, and so there's nothing you can say about him. a legit veteran UFC welterweight at 170 pounds. So Prado comes in from Australia. What Matthews used to be, Prado is. They see him as the future of South American fighting. He's young. He's extremely violent, explosive, a little bit raw. Surely hasn't been in with the level of fighter that Matthews has. Now, Matthews and Prado, that one opens Matthews minus 150. I think that's fair. Now I'm seeing Matthews minus 2-1 or so. And that's typical of what we'll see when they're betting the fighter they know in that region. But this Prado's live, and he's no cakewalk for Matthews. And I think Prado is a live dog just like Jenkins is. So we're going to take, in one instance, I'll take Jenkins, the Aussie. But in this fight, I think I'm going to go against the Aussie and take Prado because of his youth and his strength. Let me also say Prado used to fight at 155, Jeff. He's taken this fight at 70 because he's young and he's growing and he's raw. And I think it's that raw ability that's going to separate him from Matthews in this fight, or should I say potentially separate Matthews from his consciousness Saturday night.
We dive into the co-main event here. Let me just pull this up right here. Zhang versus Suarez. So it's basically a pick 'em right now. Suarez actually minus 120 in some shops, over 3.5 rounds, minus 140. On your Sneak Teeth podcast, you brought this up, where Zhang opened up minus 290 at some spots, and you could have got Suarez at around plus 190. All the money pouring in on Suarez, and you talked about this. If I trust and respect the opening numbers in the sports market, so if you were going to give me a basically, if I look here, a minus 250 at which I didn't have, now at a pick'em, I'm going to take which was value at minus 250 at now a pick'em versus Suarez, as most people would say, hey, I missed the good number. Now I got to actually pay for her as a favorite right now.
Yeah, the market is speaking loudly in the market, and trusted friends of mine in this business that I reach out to and talk to, like Suarez. So it's not. I mean, as you can see, when you go from plus 190 to minus 120, so something's happening. And so what apparently the market is telling me is that the singularly strong, focused, world-class American wrestler, which is the absolute best way to build a championship fighter, ask any coach, is going to have and hold advantage over the champion that's now defended her title 3 times, albeit against strikers and gals that maybe aren't as big, but at least well-rounded athletes. Now, when Weili Zhang has had trouble, it was against Rose Namajunas, and Rose is a very expert grappler wrestler, not as big or as physical as Suarez. So that's what the market is seeing. They're seeing a big, strong, world-class wrestler that they think is going to be too aggressive for the Chinese striker, well-rounded Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu striker wrestler herself. And they think that Zhang is going to just mow through her. And I respect that opinion. The market's telling you that. Surely it is late to bet on Suarez if you're betting Suarez. But as far as Zhang is concerned, I took her, we had her in parlays earlier, and thankfully our price is right at where it is now. So I did hold advantage on Zhang at one time. Now that advantage is sawed away and it's at pick'em, and I'm going to take more because Suarez has everything, but she is singularly dimensioned. She hasn't been in with the kind of fighter that Zhang has been in with, and she has to prove it to me. The one thing about wrestlers is they don't come with a great degree or a great ability to strike fluently, and they surely can't accept strikes very easily early on either. Now, if she's tough as granite and can walk through Zhang's kicks and punches, I'll learn something. But if Zhang touches her up, if she starts to come in and Zhang can keep this standing for the first round and a half or two, then Suarez is going to get desperate on her entries, predictable, and she's going to be a target for Zhang. I like Zhang in this fight. I like her a lot. I like her especially now after the line. But, we'll have to let them fight and see. People I respect a lot are on the other side.
Well, we'll sure find out, as that is the co-main event. And the main event, a rematch here of DUPLESSIS versus Strickland. A fight that, if I remember correctly, you can help me here, of course. Good fight, headbutt, stopped the fight. Now the rematch a handful of years later, correct?
The headbutt altered the fight. I think it altered the course of the fight. But all be that as it may, the bottom line was, in a razor close decision, DUPLESSIS beat Strickland in Canada. Now, turn it around. A few years later, each guy's fought one guy, both won, both looked okay. Although the guy that DUPLESSIS beat was Izzy, and that doesn't look as good now after last week. So now they're going to fight down under, main event. I don't see this fight being any different than the other one. I see it as a 5-round decision, but I see Strickland. I thought Strickland was winning the first one until the cut. I think this time he'll come. He's a crazy dude, and he's not. He's a crazy dude and an unusual personality. But I handicap the fighter, and his punches are straighter. He beat the bejeebies out of DUPLESSIS' face in that first fight. And so I think they get a chance to compete without any cuts or anything artificial from the outside affecting him. I think Strickland can win a decision. And I don't know if I'll bet that or not, because it's an awful close fight and you're leaving it into the judge's hands, I believe. And when you do that, anything can happen. So as you can tell, I don't have the passion for a side on this fight like I do the others. And it probably goes decision. The 4.5 shaded over feels correct to me.
Currently, DUPLESSIS minus 205, Strickland plus 170. The over is 4.5 minus $2. So as you said, most people, or at least Vegas, is pointing in the direction that it's most likely going to go to the cards.
I think that's how. I don't know how you plan it any other way.
Well, again, I didn't do my homework assignment. I know we have 10 straight weeks after last week and then this week. Any idea where we will be fighting next weekend, Lou?
Yeah. Next week we're at the Apex, and we have Jared Cannonier, what is he? He's a middleweight fighter, 185. And he's a top 5, top 6, taking on Greg RoboCop Rodriguez, who they name him RoboCop. That's what he looks like. This dude's just chiseled it, and he's younger than Cannonier and bigger. Although Cannonier will have the speed. This is an Apex card, so there'll be less crowd. There'll be no crowd almost in a small cage, but we'll be here to cover it. And next Thursday we'll be right back here dishing you some underdog winners as well.
Well, I can't wait. I want you to go and obviously enjoy the Super Bowl as we talked backstage. Next weekend, the start of college baseball. So it's going to be great to be with you throughout the year as college baseball is going, getting closer to Omaha and the regionals, the super regionals, and all that good stuff there. But as always, Lou, we always wrap up the show with throwing it back over to you so you can tell everyone, A, where they can find your website, and B, where they can find all your work.
Everything's at gamblu.com. And if you go there Friday morning, you can hit the Bout Business tab at the top of the webpage to access my Bout Business podcast. That's never longer than 15 minutes. It's usually 12, 13 minutes. Has all my final releases for each UFC's fight card there. And thank you so much for letting me mention that, Jeff.
Oh, as always, everyone head on over to Twitter at GamLou. Go follow him. Check out the website at gamlou.com. Send him an email. He actually will respond. Believe it or not, he's one of the few like myself that enjoys people reaching out to us. So Anyways, 5 o'clock. Ron Marmolewski will be back here as we'll wrap up the Super Bowl talk for Super Bowl Sunday. And then at 7 o'clock, special edition, Brady Tinker to be back here to talk Dallas, LUKA to the Lakers and his Chiefs. So everyone have a great afternoon, and we'll see you soon.